go now, baby. We are right back into the action for another day of the week. Welcome to the Monday edition of Before You Bet, airing right here on the Covers YouTube channel, coming at you with our best bets for the NBA and Major League Baseball. Looking to start the week strong. Let us bring in my co-host, my partner, John Metler. John, how was your weekend, buddy?
Good, pretty quiet. Lots of good basketball and lots of good March Madness, NBA, all of it. So I watched a lot of basketball.
Yeah, it was a good sports weekend. A good sports weekend for yours truly as well. I went skating and biking in the same day yesterday. So a nice late March day for yours truly. Very active. So hopefully we can be very active and very positive results with our bets here. It was a rough end to last week for me. So my hot streak came to a screeching halt. But let us look to start the week off strong. Let's get started, John, in the NBA, where we're going to start things off in the nation's capital, where the Miami Heat are in town. Kind of a big spread here. I'm going to take the Heat to cover this one, coming in as an 8.5-point favorite. So the Heat are turning it up while the Wizards continue to turn it in. So Miami on a beautiful 4-game stretch where they won each game by an average of 19 points. Number one in net rating in this span. So rounding into the form that they want to be in, with the playoffs right around the corner, they, of course, are in position to be in the play-in in the Eastern Conference. No reason to play down to the Wizards. They were off yesterday, and they are off tomorrow, the Miami Heat. Wizards are just getting the living shit kicked out of them whenever they play an opponent who is at least somewhat respectable. So the Pacers beat them by 53 last week. Knicks by 19, Orlando by 15. Also have losses to the Utah Jazz by 16 and the Blazers by 15. So when the Wizards lose, it tends to be very ugly. They're 27th in net rating over the last 10 games. Miami has smacked the living shit out of them by 16 and 20 in their 2 previous games this season. And the Wizards' average loss at home has come by 17.8 points. They see Cooper Flag playing this weekend. They want to get him. They want to win that lottery. So Heat to cover this, kind of a big number, I guess. Tyler Hero on the Miami Heat. You like him to fill it up a bit here tonight, John?
Yeah, I'm going to go over 24.5 points here for Tyler Hero. So this open 23.5. It's moved to 24. It might get to 25.5. I feel like it's obviously trending that way. It's, increased juice here on the 24.5 minus 120. I think at 24.5 minus 120, this is still a really good price that you can take advantage of. You just look at this matchup, like you were saying, the Wizards, they're tanking. They don't want to win. They don't have good defense. Tyler Hero, to me, is like not a stat patter, but he's kind of one of those guys who goes out and I think against really bad teams, he puts up big stat lines. He's going to go get his. What you really like about like the matchup too is that, other players on the Miami Heat will obviously have an offensive advantage as well, like a Bam Adebayo, but you're dependent on someone passing you the ball first. So like in terms of Tyler Hero, he gets to bring up the ball. He's always the one touching it first. He's the one running the offense. And if you can just break down your defender and get a shot, you can just break down your defender and get a shot. You don't really need someone to give you the ball. He is on the ball the whole time. So I like that for him. And you just look at last game against the Philadelphia 76ers, same, like very similar scenario where you're playing a tanking team, you're playing a team that doesn't want to win. He goes out and he drops 30. So I think this total is just sitting a little too low considering the matchup and the spot for Tyler Hero. So I'm going to go over 24.5 points.
Okay, speaking of tanking teams, we have one hell of a matchup going down in Charlotte without their best player, LaMelo Ball, with the Utah Jazz in town. They find reasons to sit everybody. And I have a random prop for this game. I think a pretty good-looking spot. Mark Williams to go over his point total of 14.5 points. So great matchup and great game situation. So the game situation, this is the second game of the back-to-back for Charlotte. Williams sat yesterday, so I think there's potential for Charlotte to sit some other players who played yesterday. And this team is very short on scoring options with LaMelo Ball out of the lineup now for the rest of the season. So they will be depending on Williams, who does average 15.3 points per game. And this is a great matchup for Williams. Why? Because Utah stinks at defending the paint and against opposing centers. They rank 29th in points allowed in the paint and points allowed to centers over the last 10 games. And what do you know? He played them back on January 15th. He scored 31 points. By the way, I always like looking up ticket prices for when you have games like this, like two god awful teams. $2 gets you into the arena tonight, John, for Hornets Jazz. Would you pay the $2 to go watch these two play?
I think I would stick to league pass at home for that one. If like one of like if LaMelo Ball was maybe playing, or one of the superstars somewhere, maybe, but like they're like both teams are just full on tanking. So I don't know if I can get there with that one. $2 courtside.
$2 and you get in. If you had $20 to your name, you could go to this game and get a drink and something to eat. I don't know what the concessions are, but $2 to get in. I don't know. You could bring a little kid who knows nothing about basketball, and they would think it's a really big deal. So, yeah, hopefully some people can take advantage of that tonight. Okay, next up we have Grizzlies, who fired their coach on Friday. I'm going to ask you about that when we're done with these picks. They're playing host to the Celtics. You have a prop. I have a spread. Give us a prop.
I know Jaren Jackson Jr. over 18.5 points, minus 120. So, you brought up the coach being fired. So there's a couple of things to look at here. If you look at all the Memphis Grizzlies players throughout the whole season, their minutes have been really, really low. And like Jaren Jackson Jr., this is priced like he's only going to play about like 30 minutes. Like at 31 minutes, you have a really nice edge to the over here. And you look at that first box score with the new coach, and he played 29 minutes. So you're like, maybe the minutes won't be higher. Maybe they'll be slightly even lower under the new head coach. But if you really get into it, the first half, he was in foul trouble. He played like 6 minutes. He sat the whole rest of the first half. Then he came back in the second half. He almost played the entire second half, like in that game against the Lakers. So I don't think you can judge that 29 minutes like that's the new rotations by the new coach. I think it was really just foul trouble. And I do think there's a chance this coach runs up his minutes way higher than what Taylor Jenkins was doing. So when it's being priced like off his regular season average, and then you have that as a possibility, and you don't even need that to have a nice edge to the over. You love that. In terms of the matchup with the Celtics, I think he really plays because obviously they're like 5-out spacing. Everyone can shoot threes. I don't know if they'll be able to run with like their bigs of like a Zach Edey. This kind of feels like a game where he wouldn't really fit in. And then you move Jaren Jackson Jr. to the 5, you go smaller, and he can guard on the perimeter against the Celtics and stuff. So I think that also keeps him on the floor. So I think the matchup plays. I think there's an opportunity for more minutes. It is the front end of a back-to-back. Like I said, you only need 31 minutes to have a really, really good edge. And I feel like his minutes could be much higher under this new coach. So I'm going over 18.5.
Okay, I'm going to take the Celtics to cover the spread. They're favored by 5 points in this one. It's been a fantastic month of March here for Boston, despite not being totally healthy, but they're really starting to round into form, really starting to ramp up with the playoffs right around the corner. Third in net rating over the last 10 games. Memphis is 15th. Boston has lost one game all month. That came versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. They've won 12 of their 13 games this month by 6 or more points. So opponents having trouble keeping it close against the Celtics. Grizzlies are a mess. Obviously, we discussed how they fired their coach there on Friday, and they're kind of fraudulent too. They don't perform very well against good teams in the NBA. Losses this month to the Lakers by 7 last time out. That was on their home court. They lost to OKC by 21. The Clippers beat them by 20. The Cavs came into Memphis and beat them. OKC beat them again by 17. They also have double-digit losses to the Kings and Blazers, who aren't even really good teams, average at best, I guess you could say. And I like the game situation here for Boston. I think they're going to take this game very seriously. The Celtics were off yesterday. They're off tomorrow. And a bit of a revenge game for them here because the Grizzlies came into Boston back in December and beat them. So I think Boston's going to get up for this one. I think they're going to win by at least 6 points. Give me the Celtics to cover the spread. Next up, we have, speaking of revenge games, Spencer Dinwiddie, I believe, taking on his former team here, John. Break this one down.
Yeah, he went from the Mavs to the Nets back to the Mavs. So we're going.
I forgot what team he was on. I was like, wait a minute. I know it's a revenge game somehow, but okay, break this one down.
I stopped with the Lakers in between there too, but we're going Spencer Dinwiddie under 8.5 assists. So this actually opened last night 9.5. It was minus 140, pretty good juice to the under there. I was almost confused. I was like, am I missing something? Because why is Spencer Dinwiddie trading at 9.5 for an assist total? And I like the under there. It's gone to 8.5, so obviously it wasn't missing anything. It's moved a ton, but even at 8.5 minus 135, you still have a really, really good edge here. I don't really know what they were doing with that initial pricing. I don't know why they decided to open him at that number. You are concerned from like, okay, a matchup standpoint, the Nets are tanking, not really good defense. Could he rack up the assists? You also have your lob threats. It looks like Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively might be back. Anthony Davis is playing. So like all those guys are in. But at the same time, that's also a reason to go under because they want to play double bigs. So like if the bigs are all back, and then you also have Caleb Martin back, like Najee Marshall, PJ Washington. There's a lot of guys now. Their injury report's a lot cleaner. So like to just assume Spencer Dinwiddie is going to play a ton of minutes when they might want to run double big, and then it kind of squeezes out minutes from the guards. The bottom line is when you're looking at this price, you can project them for like 37, 38 minutes, and you still have a nice edge on the under here. And I don't think that's what he's playing. So I'm not sure why it's open like this. He's had some big games here of like 12 assists. If you go look at the box score, but like over his last 6, it's like 11 potential assists and 8 converting to 8 assists. So even at that, he's not getting over it. And that's a really high conversion rate. I love the under here.
Okay, over to Major League Baseball. We have the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Washington Nationals, and I'm going to target Blue Jays starter Bowden Francis to go over a strikeout total of 4.5. A little juicy, -126. I do think it is worth it. Very simple breakdown here, ladies and gentlemen. The Nationals have the highest strikeout percentage in Major League Baseball so far this season, coming in at 34.5%. They strike out a lot, and Francis is a very good pitcher. He's a very pleasant surprise for the Blue Jays at the tail end of last season. He went over this number in 7 of his final 9 appearances in 2024, stretched out to 83 pitches in his final start in spring training, so he should be good to go. Hopefully rack up at least 5 strikeouts for us. Next up, we'll go out to the West Coast. The San Diego Padres playing host to the Cleveland Guardians. I think a really good opportunity here to take the first 5 over at 4.5. So, first of all, respectable starts for each of these offenses, each in the top 9 in OPS. But this is primarily a fade of each starter. Both of these guys were awful in spring training. Let's start with Luis Ortiz, who gets a start here for the Guardians. He had 6 appearances in spring training. He had a 10.13 ERA in those games. This includes getting rocked for 4 earned runs versus the Padres. So they've seen him recently. Meanwhile, on the bump here for the Padres is a man named Kyle Hart. He only made 2 appearances in spring training, but he was awful, a 9.39 ERA, which includes getting rocked for 6 earned runs versus these Guardians. So they have recent experience against him. So I think we're going to see at least 5 runs in the first 5 innings in beautiful San Diego, California. And we know if we're talking Major League Baseball bets, John has a home run bet. Familiar name here, Bobby Witt Jr. You like him to go yard?
Yeah, you always like when you see like superstar players and have an edge to the over. So he's playing in Milwaukee again, beginning of the season. You kind of like to stay like in those domes, warmer weather. I know there's a couple of games with the Rays being outside in Florida. That's also a ballpark to watch now. But you like that this is in Milwaukee. It's in a dome. You're kind of like hitter-friendly park. He's the starting pitcher is Elvin Rodriguez. There's not really much stats on Elvin Rodriguez. I did look it up, like spring training through 10 innings, gave up 3 homers. I went and watched the homers, a couple more bombs. One to, I think, Joe Adell was a right-handed batter. This is righty-on-righty matchup, at least to start the game. I don't know how long this guy's going to pitch, but it's righty-on-righty matchup to start the game. Bobby Witt last year hit 32 bombs, 28 against right-handed pitchers. So even though it is righty-on-righty, you like that. Projections were coming in about like plus 290 for Bobby Witt Jr. So if you're going to put him in the dome in Milwaukee and you're going to give me a plus 420, and it's a guy who's basically the favorite to win AL MVP, and projections are coming back plus 290, I'm going to hit the button. So give me Bobby Witt Jr.
There we go. Yeah, Major League Baseball. A little tricky this time of year to be handicapping baseball. You're working with short sample sizes, but like I say, sample sizes need to start somewhere. So some of these will continue. Some of them will flame out. Torpedo bats, the topic of the weekend in Major League Baseball. I do look forward to discussing that with Gary Sheffield Jr. in our conversation tomorrow, every Tuesday here on the Covers YouTube channel. Okay. I want to ask you about Taylor Jenkins getting fired. A lot of people, this came through Friday around noon here, or early afternoon on the East Coast. And a lot of people very surprised by this. The Memphis Grizzlies, so they were much better in the first half than they had been in the second half. But it's not like they've been awful in the second half. They're kind of fraudulent. They don't do good against good teams. But still, you know, they're in, 5th place here in the West. They could easily cut a game behind the Lakers here for 4th place. Jenkins is a guy, he's needed to deal with a lot of drama with the Ja Morant gun stuff. A lot of injuries with the team as well. Despite all this, a winning record as coach of the Memphis Grizzlies. And I think most importantly here, we're 8 games out from the playoffs starting. This is a team hoping to have a little bit of success in the playoffs. So when I see something like this happen, my mind automatically thinks, well, it's got to be something other than just basketball reasons. Is Jenkins out touring all the local massage parlors there in Memphis? Is it a situation like that? I think there's more to this story. What do you think, John?
Yeah, it was shocking. I think we all thought there was more to the story, and we didn't get more to the story. It was just the owner called him into his office and they fired him, and it was over X's and O's. They also fired a couple of assistant coaches. So I'm thinking there was like half the room was on this side for what we want to do for X's and O's, and half of the room was on the other side for what we want to do for X's and O's. And it seems they wiped out the Taylor Jenkins side. Then they promoted this other coach. It's a weird scenario because John Morant has kind of talked about how he doesn't really like the offensive scheme they're running. They're really low on pick and roll. He wants to be a pick and roll player. And then the coach whose offensive scheme that basically is the one who just got promoted. So if you're trying to please John Morant, it's not really, that's not the path they took. So I don't know if this is like an organizational reset. Like we're basically going to move on from John Morant this offseason as well. You've kind of seen that rumored, and the time, but the timing is just so weird. You're the 5 seed in the Western Conference. If you're the 5 seed in the Eastern Conference, I could see maybe making this move because you're like, it's still, we might even be below 500 if we're the 5 seed in the Eastern Conference, and it's a disappointing season. It's not where we expected to be, but you're the 5 seed in the West. Like the West is crazy hard to even get into that top 6. And you're 8 games out from the playoffs. Like, what do you expect this coach to do? It's the whole thing's really weird. I feel like we'll get more clarity in the offseason. You have seen rumors about John Morant, though, like maybe them shopping him. So it might just be a reset button for the Grizzlies. And I don't know why now. I feel like we need more of that. It's kind of like the Luka Doncic thing. It's like, is there more? Like we didn't really get it, but like there's got to be something else happening. So we'll see.
Yeah, the timing is completely messed up. And there's still so much fallout from the Luka stuff. Mark Cuban getting into it with Mavs employees on Facebook over the weekend. I don't know if you saw that, but everyone kind of turning on each other there down in Dallas. And Mark Cuban doesn't want any of the blame to fall on his shoulders. But we've been over that. That is how you tank a franchise. The Dallas Mavericks. Anthony Davis is supposed to be in the lineup for them here tonight. Okay, to recap the picks here, I like the Heat -8.5. Mark Williams over 14.5 points. Celtics to cover as a 5-point favorite. Francis for the Blue Jays to go over 4.5 strikeouts, and Guardians Padres F5 over 4.5. John, what do you have?
Hey, Jaren Jackson Jr. over 18.5 points. To actually turn that Taylor Jenkins thing into more of a bet angle, this is something you could watch, as it's a new coach, their pace might change. And like all their betting numbers are running off like 60 games of the regular season. And you're about to see very different minutes, very different schemes and all these things. So from a betting angle, pay attention to all that because it could change and the numbers might have a hard time adapting. But we're going to go Tyler Hero over 24.5 points, Spencer Dinwiddie under 8.5 assists, Bobby Witt Jr. to hit home run +420.
Let's go. Okay, that does it for the Monday edition of Before You Bet. We're going to be right back with you guys again tomorrow, doing the exact same thing and hopefully celebrating a winning day. So thank you guys very much for tuning in. If you like the show, hit the like button right down there, the subscribe button as well. Lots of big-time content coming up here. Covers, of course, the Final Four, the Masters, right around the corner, as well as the NBA and NHL playoffs, the NFL draft, NFL over-unders are out as well. We're going to have a video up for that this week. Thank you guys for tuning in. Enjoy the games tonight. Best of luck with your bets, and we'll catch you again tomorrow. Woo!